Hello, my name is Makeda. I am the host and champion of the SCL, the SoCal Championship Draft League, which is a league that I have hosted for Pokemon. This is the second season, and I thought I would do a draft analysis of my team and why I chose my team for anyone who is interested in maybe hosting a draft league before, so you could see how the thought process is behind drafting a team, and it's actually an extremely fun experience, and I recommend it greatly. So I am the coach of the Boston Bidoofs, and let me show you in order what I drafted and why. So let's start with my first pick, which happened to be G-Max Corviknight. G-Max Corviknight was my first pick because I knew I wanted Corviknight. I didn't know if I wanted G-Max or if I wanted regular, but I settled with G-Max because it gives you a guaranteed defog. Its Gigantamax move is G-Max Wind Rage, I believe, and it clears hazards from the field. So I was like, okay, I need a way to remove hazards, so I'm going to draft G-Max Corviknight because then it doesn't have to waste a move slot on defog and it could still clear hazards for me. I also knew I wanted Corviknight because there's a very good lack of steel types that are strong in the draft, at least in the later tiers, and I was 8th pick, so I knew Pokemon like Aegislash and other strong steals in the upper tiers were going to be taken pretty quickly. And I knew Corviknight was an extremely strong Pokemon. That ground immunity is very useful, and it gets two good abilities, and it can be very bulky. And I like my favorite type of way to battle, especially in draft league, is bulky offense, which Corviknight really is a really good user of that battle style. So I picked Corviknight first. My second pick was actually a B tier. I should let you know that we get one G Max, one S tier, one A tier, three B tiers, and four C tiers when we're drafting. And I picked Whimsicott, who was a B tier, because I knew I needed a fairy. All the good fairies are in the first three or four tiers, or three tiers that are actually viable, and I knew Whimsicott would be a heavily contested one. So I picked it second because I didn't really care what my S tier was going to be. I decided to prioritize some of those lesser picks because I knew um, that I would be able to make my S pick adaptable to whatever the other teams have decided on. So I decided to pick Whimsicott because I knew it would go quickly after the early picks were over. So I just grabbed it right away. Plus, it's a good grass type. I love Prankster. Prankster is one of my favorite abilities in the entire game. It also gets a lot of good moves that are utility. It says it gets knockoff, but I'm pretty sure knockoff is a transfer move. We're not using the moves that were re-released to Pokemon via home, but we are using the abilities. So, for example, like Aegislash still can't get toxic, even though home is officially released at the time that we have done this draft league. So it gets Moonblast, which means anything that resists Prankster, that's a dark type, gets hit super effectively. And so it's just a really solid Pokemon, and I love it, and I've used it multiple times. My third pick was actually a C tier, which is Quagsire, and I picked Quagsire third because of Water Absorb, and we had a person in our draft, the third pick, I believe, drafted Dracovish, and Dracovish is an insane threat, especially to teams that don't have a good water resist. But because it's usually running some sort of choice, either Scarf or Band, I decided to go for Quagsire because Water Absorb will completely absorb Fish's Rend. I'll take no damage. Even if he decides to choose a different move to cover in case he expects the Quagsire switch in, I'm not exactly sure how much damage that'll do to Quagsire, but I guarantee you Quagsire is bulky enough to take at least one hit. At least one extra hit, I should say. So that's why I picked Quagsire. It also gets Toxic, is one of the few non-poison types in this generation to get Toxic. It gets Recover, and it has Scald and Earth Power and Earthquake, which are all great coverage. I could even run Encore if I wanted to. So I think Quagsire is a very solid mon. It's a C tier pick, which means it's very cheap and very worthwhile. And my fourth pick ended up being Goodra because, like I said, I love bulky offense, and it was the only thing left in my Steel Fairy Dragon core. And honestly, there's not very many good dragon types in this generation that aren't S tier. You have Como-O and Dragapult in S tier, and then you have Duraludon, that's a G Max, and an A tier. And I didn't really want to waste my A tier pick on something that I don't really, I'm not very fond of. So I don't really like Duraludon too much. I already had Corviknight as my steal. I didn't want to pick. Dragapult was first picked, so I couldn't pick Dragapult for my S, and I couldn't pick. Uh, what was it? Flygon? Someone picked Flygon already, but I didn't really feel like I needed another ground type, so I think Goodra was the best bet. It fits my playstyle perfectly. It's bulky offensive. It has Sap Sipper, so it actually counters my Quagsire's weakness of grass with Sap Sipper, which is fantastic because Quagsire is a physical defensive mon, and Goodra is especially defensive. So I have both spectrums that actually balance each other out because Quagsire takes the ice hits. I mean, neutrally, but it's still bulky enough to deal with it and stuff like that. Except Freeze Dry, that kills him. We don't talk about that. And also gets Gooey and Hydration, which are pretty useful. There's a person that drafted Pelipper. Actually, the Dracovish guy drafted Pelipper, so Hydration might come in handy. Gooey is just an interesting counter to offensive, like physically offensive teams. I just really like that as an ability. It gets really good coverage. It gets Power Whip, Draco Meteor, Earthquake, uh, Rock Slide, Sludge Bomb, whatever. So it's very versatile, and I like that a lot. So I decided to go with my next pick is Rotom Heat as my A tier because I'm not too fond of most of the fire types that are in this generation or available in this generation, I should say. It's one of the very few multi-typed fire types. The only other good fire types in the game that I would say are probably Arcanine, maybe Cinderace. It depends because I'm not exactly sure how viable hazards are going to be in this draft league. I didn't draft very much to set hazards this generation. Last generation, or last draft, I made a sticky web team. I had Rabombi and Galvantula, and that really worked out in my favor. But I felt like going a kind of different route this time, and so I didn't really draft as much hazards. But I picked Rotom Heat because I love the versatility that his stab combination provides. I love the fact that he can run multiple sets. He can run, he resists ground. He gets nasty plot now, so he can just recover off that special attack drop that overheat gives him. It gets all kinds of stuff. I could set screens. I could run Hex. Its Will-O-Wisp is invaluable against certain matchups. It's just a great Pokemon overall, and I don't regret drafting him for my A tier. My second B tier that I drafted was Espeon. I picked Espeon. I was considering Indeedee for this slot because I was missing a normal type, and in fact, I didn't actually even draft a normal type in this generation or in this draft because typically I like to cover as many types as possible because then I have a way to deal with every single type if someone has a advantage with. Like if someone had three ghost types, love to have a normal type in there, but I didn't draft one, so we'll have to see how that goes because there is someone that has Dragapult and Gengar, and it's going to be a very difficult battle to work around those weaknesses. But I picked Espeon because it gives me Magic Bounce. Magic Bounce is an insanely good ability. Bounces back the hazards. Like I said, I was lacking any real removal or setting, so Magic Bounce could get me some hazards that I didn't expect to have on my team. It's also a really strong Psychic type. I didn't have that coverage yet. It's very fast. Something that I lack a lot because I like to build bulky offense is speed. So I decided to pick someone. I think he has base 110 speed. So that's really good. I like that. It's incredibly good special attack, and its other stats are mediocre except for special defense. But that doesn't really matter because its main job is going to be offensive hazard prevention. So I think it's a really good pick. It's solid offensively, covers a lot of stuff that I didn't cover because it gets Shadow Ball, it gets Dazzling Gleam, it gets Psychic, Shock. It even has Quick Attack if I really need that priority. And I could trick something, a choice item like the same as Rotom, or I could use Wish. And Wish is going to be really valuable on a team where I have really little recovery. I have Recover on Quagsire and Drain Punch on my S tier pick, which you will see. But that's pretty much it. So that's why I decided to go with Espeon. So my seventh pick was actually the start of Quagsire was my first C tier, but then I went with Drapion, because Drapion is one of the very few poison types in this generation that I felt like were very usable. It also gave me a dark type, which I didn't have yet, and I like Drapion a lot because it has knockoff. It can run Black Sludge like nothing else does. I can run Toxic Spikes if I need to, and it's one of the very few toxic setters in this generation because it's a legitimate poison type because they removed the TM. So I could run Toxic on a bulky set if I really wanted to, but I think Knockoff is one of its greatest assets. It also gets Sniper if I wanted to run crits. It has Cross Poison and Night Slash and Scope Lens, make it hit lots of crits. Does it get Focus Energy? I doubt it. That'd be sick. Nah, no Focus Energy. But yeah, and it also gets the Elemental Fangs. And it gets Leech Life. And it gets Swords Dance, so it's a really good sweeper. It has base 95 speed, so it's really decently fast, and it's very bulky. So I really like him as a choice, especially in C tier. And that's why I chose him. As for my third C tier pick, Rhydon, the only Pokemon on my team that repeats a type as ground, he gives me a nice Eviolite, a nice bulky Eviolite user for my team, which is important because in this draft we are using item clause, which means every Pokemon on our team has to have unique items. So I can't run leftovers twice, which is why I've drafted a lot of Pokemon that can use interesting items like Rhydons with Eviolite. I could use Black Sludge on Drapion and Rindoberry on Quagsire, stuff like that. Lots of stuff that can benefit from multiple items. I like Rhydon. He's my only Stealth Rock setter. He has incredibly good defensive stats, 105 HP, 120 defense, and a really high attack stack at 130, but he's very slow. It's his only downside. That being said, his bulkiness might make up for that. He gets really good coverage. He gets Fire Punch for some reason. He gets Hammer Arm, Heavy Slam, Hydro Pump. What? I didn't know that. Poison Jab, just for coverage. I doubt I'd ever use any of those, but it's just nice to know that it has that. It even gets Aqua Tail. So it gets a lot of good coverage besides the original Edgequake combo. So I'm happy to draft him if I ever need a really strong rock type attacker. And also it has Rockhead and Reckless for those recoil move boosts. My last pick, or my second to last pick, was actually Vikavolt, but I traded it right after the draft for a Frostlass because Frostlass fits my team much better than Vikavolt. I realized that Vikavolt basically did everything that Rotom Heat could do, but worse, except for setting Sticky Web. So Vikavolt's only asset to me was Sticky Web, which I wasn't really planning to use anyway. So I swapped it for Frostlass, which gives me a Spin Blocker, a really, really fast Pokemon. It gets base 110 again, and it gives me Ghost and Ice type, and I have Priority as well. I didn't have Priority before, so well, I have a little bit, but it gives me Ice Shard. It gives me Destiny Bond on a fast Pokemon. It gives me a good way to deal with stab dragons, or a good way to hit dragons with a stab super effective move. And it gets Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, and Trick again. I probably won't run Trick on 3 Pokemon on my team, but it's nice to have that option on multiple things. And then finally, my S pick, I decided to pick my S pick last because everyone had their S tier chosen by like round 3, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted. So I decided to wait until the end and see what best fit my team, and what best fit my team, in my opinion, was Conkeldurr. So Conkeldurr is basically the same as everything else. It's bulky offensive. It has really high HP and defense, and great attack stack at 140. But like I said, we're running item clause, so the reason I picked Conkeldurr over the other options was because I could run Flame Orb on it, which I can't run on anybody else, and get its Guts boost. It also gets Sheer Force and Iron Fist, so it has a lot of flexibility when it comes to abilities, and it has great moves. It gets Drain Punch for recovery. It gets Knockoff, Mach Punch. It gets Defog, which I probably will never run on it, but it gets it. I get Thunder Punch, Facade. It's just great. It absorbs status because of Guts. and it's just a really solid fighting type Pokemon, which I didn't have coverage for. So I'm really happy with the way my team turned out. I think honestly, it's one of the scariest teams in the league. Just looking at the Pokemon individually is very intimidating. Um, Nothing in here really stands out as a weak Pokemon. My worst is probably offensively, probably Quagsire, and I think Quagsire is invaluable with the utility that it provides me. So uh, that is my team. I was the champion barely from last season. If you guys would want to watch and see the battle, I can commentate on it and tell you what went right and what went wrong, because there was a lot of both going on in that battle. It was incredibly close, and I'm really excited to face the semi-finalist, the runner-up from last season, who was Jokin, who also did a team analysis in the draft, and see how it goes this time, because our teams are vastly different, and uh, I think we're both very similar in skill level. We'll see if anyone can match us this season. I'm really excited. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, or if you're interested in a draft league, I'd gladly answer any questions you have for me. If you're confused by anything that I've said, or you want to start a draft league of your own, maybe join one next season, let me know and I will see what we can do. Uh, I will also be doing a video in a team analysis of my team for each week. At least I plan to do one for each week of my battles, because we have 10 people participating, which means I'll have 9 battles plus the two semifinal, or the semifinal and the finals battles, if I make it there. So there's quite a lot of battles coming up, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching.